then to Kolhapur, then to Pune, and then to Mumbai. He has a lot of publications to his credit, and one such book is on pragmatism and Buddhism, which was co-edited with some foreign scholar. So this is a very brief introduction about Professor Zondare. I know that you all are waiting eagerly to listen to our guest today, Professor Dipankar Sinha. With may I please request you, sir? It's all yours. I mean, so he'll be talking on rebooting political communication. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Very good afternoon to you all, Chairman Sir, and the dignitaries of the dais, and the participants. I wish to, I really feel privileged to be in Mumbai again, in a different capacity perhaps. Otherwise I would have been there, noting down the reports for my newspaper, but this time, at this mature age, I am here, the other side of the fence. It is always good to be in Mumbai. I don't want to explain why, you all know, such a vibrant maximum city. I wish to express my gratitude to Sharad Pawarji, Madam Supriya Sule, all the office bearers of the YCC and the Nehru Center, and including Yogeshji, who has been meticulously coordinating things, and Mridul has made me his hostage here for 2 days, so as the predator, and didn't seek any ransom at all except this, perhaps this lecture. So thank you all. I will be speaking on, as you can see, rebooting political communication. Now I have to justify that why on earth should we think about political communication. There are many other topics which could have been discussed, but why political communication? I think, I would refer to a paradox. We are all in political communication. We all indulge in political communication, but in India, I'm insisting that in India, or maybe in South Asia, we don't analyze political communication as such. Why do I say this? Because in the Western developed countries, in America, in Europe, you have a lot of brilliant scholars, indulging in the analysis of political communication. But in our case, for reasons, I don't know why, we don't really discuss it in a rigorous manner. We are in it, but we don't, talk about it. Think of, say, the slogans like "Karenge ya marenge," or "Give me blood and I will give you freedom," or a great mobilizing slogan, I would say. I mean, because I am in his place now, not only because of that, I am a great admirer of Dr. Ambedkar. Educate, agitate, organize. Now, what do these slogans mean, basically? I mean, they all have one common thing, that is, they infuse political communication in one way or other. Of course, the time would be different, the personalities might be different. Think of another great person, R.K. Laxman, R.K. Laxman's Common Man. Common Man never speaks, and if you see the common man's dress, it's very simple, but he is everywhere, looking around and finding so many, I would say, dissecting politicians, not just gazing, but dissecting politicians like anything. I mean, you know that there are volumes of R.K. Laxman's cartoons, so I may go on for 5 hours discussing him. In fact, in one of my books, Information Game in Democracy, I have devoted 5 or 6 pages on him, because I, again, admire him. And I think in a way, he was my indirect teacher also in political communication, because I was enthused by seeing that what kind of political take you can have without uttering a single word, the common man uttering a single word. Or say, Achhe Din Aayega, or Mera Bharat Mahan, and India Shining. All these are part and parcel of political communication. So, as I mentioned this, that politics without political communication has no roots, and political communication has been described as the lifeblood of politics. Now, as you can see, there is a dual role of political communication. It reorients politics and is also reoriented by it. Such a dynamic, I mean, fascinatingly dynamic and complex process, political communication, that you can never have it in a static form. Now, political communication, when we talk of political communication, we often try to think of a triad, and at one point you have the political leadership, the political activists, at another point you have the media, and at another point you have the, Aam Aadmi, or like us, ordinary people, ordinary citizens. Now, media has joined this triad in a major way because there are studies around the world which says now that the most powerful actor in political communication may not be the political leaders anymore, but the media itself, especially the mainstream media. The way, the aggressiveness, as you find, the aggression that you find in media. So, when it comes to agenda setting, ideally we have these 3 points in the triad. But we know that basically the competition in agenda setting in terms of political communication and in terms of politics is between political leadership and the media. Now, media is somewhat ahead perhaps because political leaders are afraid of media, but it seems media is not afraid of political leaders. I mean, if you switch on television and listen to Arnab Goswami for 5 minutes, you would realize that yes, media is not at all afraid of any political personality or any political communication, any political, leadership. So, political communication lies at the core of analyzing politics, governance, public policy, and diplomacy. And I think both the YCC and Nehru Center, I mean, they are making a great contribution in this way by highlighting in different ways from different vantage points on these issues. The mantra of political communication, if you want me to identify the mantra of political communication, it is persuasion. And persuasion is, the strategies of persuasion would be fascinatingly complex because who wins or who loses, it's a very, very slippery issue. So, as I was mentioning in my Mumbai University lecture in the morning, that look, Hitler had come to power by landslide majority. Hitler did not impose himself on the people. But look what it turned out to be. Or even the most powerful ruler like Indira Gandhi had to face defeat in the election. So you never know who wins or who loses. And that makes political communication all the more fascinating. So my presentation is basically a kind of plea for understanding political communication. I will focus on a brief evolution of political communication. And political communication is problematic because apparently, it is steeped in exercising power, influence, and authority, fine. But what you have to remember is that when we talk of political communication has both substantive and symbolic value, both. So it is not just the political leader or the media or even the ordinary people, because ordinary people also strikes back. I mean, because silence is also silence is also communication. So when there, some leader would be there asking you something that, look, I have done this and that, don't you think I have done a great job? If everybody remains silent, that is also a political communication. So communication involves silence also, not just verbal issue, that is there, but silence is also very, very important. The problematic thing is that not all communication are political, would be political, because there would be some communication which would be non-political. So if you meet some friends and say, how are you, and we have met after a long time, let's have a cup of coffee, I mean, there would be no politics in it unless, of course, and that is where political scientists become suspicious, that your friend wants some political mileage from you, or your friend tells you that, okay, I will be standing in the election, contesting the election, so please. So that, at that moment, that apparently non-political communication becomes political. So there are certain nuances, certain layers in political communication, which of course the political leadership understands very well, more than us perhaps, because we are a diffuse lot, the Aam Aadmi, the ordinary people. We are scattered, we are fragmented. But political leadership has some kind of, coherence, quote unquote. May not be 100%, but a lot of coherence in them. And media also has that kind of coherence. We are the only ones in the triad, perhaps, that, we are in the receiving end. Now, if you think of the beginning of political communication, then there was a very interesting model of political communication, propagated by various communication scholars. It was initialized in this sender message receiver model, which is popularly known as the bullet model, because the bullet penetrates your body like anything. It is also called the syringe model or hypodermic syringe model, because like in injection, you are injected certain elements into your body. So political communication, the initial stage was being, I have provided the date also, the decade 1920s. You have a lot of, books and articles and, scholars discussing the bullet model and how to improve the bullet model or how to improve the syringe model and all that. So it led to what is called the manufacture of consent. The manufacture of consent, that became very, very important. In fact, Walter Lippmann wrote a book by this name, and it was published in 1921, Manufacture of Consent. Later, of course, it was taken up by scholars like Chomsky, Noam Chomsky, and Harman, Edward Harman, who came out with a book called Manufacturing Consent. So this is a very dominant kind of, for a long time it was a dominant kind of theorization of political communication, and the practical manifestation of which you could find in Hitler, the way Hitler would speak. You can see from the body language also that he was resorting to the bullet model. Same with Mussolini. So I think the Nazis and the fascists, they took a lot of advantage of the bullet model, and Goebbels was, of course, one of the chief architects there. So, but the problem in this model is that there is a kind of what I would call, the sender side bias, because this model assumes that the sender is most powerful, and sender is constructing certain messages, and sender is sending the messages to the receivers, and receivers are meekly accepting them. Now, things may not be that easy. That may be a very, very simplistic assumption. That is why, after a point of time, after long dominance, this model, the sender message receiver model, became very, very weak, and it began to be critiqued and refuted. I will come to that. Now, the first rebooting you find of political communication in the 1950s and 60s. Mainly, I would identify three countries where this rebooting took place. It is West Germany, France, and England. So basically Western Europe. Now, why do I call it first rebooting? Because here the focus shifted to the political behavior of the electorates in the political system. The focus was something different. The political behavior of the electorates in political system. So the basic question here, as you can see in the slide, that how voters are targeted. How voters are targeted through political communication by the political leaders. Media was there, but in a very, I would say, secondary position in these analyses. Were basically related to, would pertain to the political leadership. Now, how voters are informed and misinformed by persuasive communication. How voters were informed and misinformed by, or disinformed by, persuasive communication. So voters' motivations were being analyzed, the impact of formal institutions were being analyzed, and I would call it, I hope the current psephologists would not mind. It is the earliest form of psephology that we had, in the 1950s. And but psephology was not the term being used at that point of time, but what you have now in terms of psephology, this is the earliest incarnation, I would prefer to call it. Then the second rebooting of political communication took place with the behavioral revolution in social science, because social science, from the very name you can understand, at one point of time wanted to be very scientific. Say, for instance, political science. I would always prefer, I always feel very uncomfortable with the core discipline that I teach, because it's called political science. I would prefer to call it political studies. But it had its name in political science because political science wanted to be a science. Political studies scholars wanted to make it a science, like natural science. So it became political science. And behavioral revolution was, to a major extent, responsible for this. Now here during the second rebooting, all the functions of political system, it was pointed out that all the functions of political system are to be performed by communication. So communication is given a larger space in the second rebooting, because all the functions of political system, all is very, very important. So if you think of any kind of political function, it would be argued that it is being guided by the motive force is political communication. Now it also advocated a separate, status to the neutral and objective political communication. But there is no such thing as neutrality in this world. So later on, scholars would, as I would show you, would contest this vociferously, very powerfully, and say that there cannot be neutral. Because if persuasion is your mantra, then how can you be neutral? You are trying to persuade people to yourself. Say, when a political leader comes and says that, please vote for me, I have done so many things for you, and immediately in the same stage next, the opposition leader comes and says that, please vote for me because I will do certain things for you, and he or she has done nothing, then where do you find the neutrality or objectivity in this kind of communication? And there is no need to be value judgmental about it also. As a political scientist, I will never argue that, look, politicians are doing a dangerous thing by, trying to persuade people to their, obviously this should be the case, because if you are a politician, you would like to govern. How many political parties are there, except the radical left and, some other parties, say in India, who would say that I don't want to govern, I just want to be in politics. So persuasion is there, and whenever you have persuasion, let's accept that you cannot be neutral. You cannot be objective. You also have to sell your, point. That is and that would become a very, very important rebooting later on, this selling thing. I will come to that later. So basically, the main objective of the second rebooting was, as you can see, order maintenance. How to maintain order, how to maintain status quo, how to avoid, revolutionary instincts, impulses. That becomes very, very important for the powers that we always throughout the world, and that became very, very important. And it also became the base of the more scientific third rebooting, which is based on the cybernetic paradigm. Because in cybernetic paradigm, political communications, of course, we have borrowed it from, as you know, from engineering and technology. In cybernetic paradigm, in fact, there was this tremendous stress on the science and engineering of politics. So politics was being interpreted as an engineering process, So science and engineering politics. Norbert Wiener, who's basically a mathematician, we borrowed political communication scholars borrowed his very important concept, automatic pilot. He has used a very important concept, automatic pilot, where basically he says that, politics would, through the cybernetic paradigm, would automatically control order and everything. Politics would be automatically controlled. Then he had a very important disciple in one of the best known political scientists and international relations scholars of the world, died just 8 or 9 years back, Carl Deutsch. Now, Carl Deutsch of Harvard University, he in fact made, I would say, this third rebooting global. We all, as students, we all read his books. I mean, I was personally fascinated by it, even if I later became a critic of Karl Deutsch and dared to go to America even to make a critique of him. But being a great person, being a great thinker, I mean, they would take criticisms in their stride. But here I would like to pay my date to Karl Deutsch, because why Karl Deutsch is important is that if you read his book, I mean, he has several books. Nationalism and Social Communication, which was published in 1953, Nationalism and Social Communication. And if you read his book, which was published a decade later in 1963, and that's a classic book, Nerves of Government. See the title, Nerves of Government. Why? Because he says that you will never understand politics unless you redefine politics in terms of nerves and muscles. Nerves and muscles. Politics is basically nerves and muscles. I mean, what we did before Karl Deutsch, we interpreted politics more in structural terms, in more institutional terms. Yes, institutions are important, structures are important. But he would argue that if you want to understand politics through political communication, you have to, address the nerves and identify and analyze the nerves and muscles. Because to him, and he would go on elaborating this, I am being very brief, as you can understand, that government is a steering process. That is, government is a steering agent. And today, look, when World Bank came out with this thesis of governance, which is now the thesis ruling the world, you see governance is being interpreted by World Bank and UNDP in terms of steering. You have to steer, you have to navigate. And that is where there is a distinction between the government and the governance, because governance is government plus. You have the market, you have the civil society, right? You have the NGOs and so on and so forth. Everything would be part of governance. But when you say government, you know that you are basically identifying one particular structure, that is, the state and the government and so forth. So Karl Deutsch was very clear in his book, and throughout this book, he was explaining how to how to analyze the production, selection, and channeling of information. Production, selection, and channeling of information. I think it is the slides, maybe. This one, no? Okay, from here. Okay, thank you. Now, as I hinted that there would be a critique of this kind of, transmission model or cybernetic model by the scholars gradually, who would argue that, objectivity is a myth, as I mentioned, that if persuasion is the mantra, how can you say that you will have total objectivity and neutrality? So objectivity is a myth. That's a major criticism that came out. Also, there was growing importance of the social and political context of the transfer of meaning. So political communication, say in France, would not exactly be like the political communication in India, because our social, and cultural, political contexts are different. So the transfer of meaning would be much different. So if a country like Germany is divided, then, how can you have how could you have at that time when Germany was divided, you had political communication in two Germanys from two different paradigms, in fact, right? So, this kind of simplistic idea that you just transfer certain messages and people take it, it's not that. Why would, I was also mentioning this in the first lecture, that why would the East Germans like to defect to West Germany rather than the West Germans defecting to East Germany? You have to analyze it in political communication terms, that West Germany might have succeeded in generating a kind of political communication that we are very good, you will be more comfortable with us, which East Germany had failed. So, this is how it happens. And this kind of studies came out from Europe this kind of studies came out more from Europe than from America, in fact, that, we have to be very, very careful. And French scholars also took a major role in this, played a major role in this, in going beyond the transmission model, because very fascinating kind of theories you would always get from France. So, and they were at it very much. And, the scholars all over the world started focusing on meaning, mediation, and interpretation. These became very, very important, completely abolishing or demolishing the bullet model, meaning, mediation, and interpretation. So, even if you generate certain meanings, you intend to have certain meanings, there would be a sort of mediation by the society itself, and ultimately the interpretation might be different. So, what you intend, there is no 100% guarantee, even if you are the best of most powerful political leader in the world, you have no guarantee that that would be interpreted by the people in the same manner. There is no mechanistic, kind of technocratic kind of transmission. So, as you can see, there was this, and this also, this started in 1980s onwards, the fourth rebooting. And this also now leads to a situation, a scenario, where we in political communication always talk of the importance of, always give importance to the tentative and partial explanations. We argue that no explanation is, absolutely perfect. It is tentative. Every explanation is tentative. Every explanation is, partial. And there is also a lot of ambivalence in it. And maybe dangerously, we are close to a society which is a post-truth society. In fact, even this post-truth has been marketed, by certain agencies which were very close to political communication scholars. So why all of a sudden, in 2016, you had this concept post-truth coming in? Why not in 2014? Why not in 2010? Why not in 2023? Because it was, marketed also, because the theories were coming out that what is truth is, very relative, and political communication basically plays on this, but we analysts don't pay much attention to this. So there was this rise of the idea of post-truth or the disinformation society. Now, we always talk of information society, right? We have a lot of publicity on information society. Then Scott Lash, a sociologist from Britain, came out with a wonderful book. It's called the Disinformation Society. He says that what you call information society is mostly disinformation and misinformation. There may be some information which are reliable, but most of it is, and today you can see the heightened form through media, through political leadership, through people. Now, why do I say people? You might question me that all of a sudden, because I don't romanticize ordinary people, Ordinary people, if you see the trolls, if you see the comments are at times more important, to understand what ordinary people are doing and how they are thinking. So you will see, some riots would take place in some other place, maybe 20 years back, and that would be splashed as, a contemporary event here. And then it would take place. I just, maybe one month back, a professor, a good friend of mine from Delhi, had sent me a sort of clip of people killing each other and all that, and said that what is happening in West Bengal. Now, I don't say that West Bengal is a heavenly place. Those who live in West Bengal now would never argue that it's a heavenly place. But the point is, I immediately told him, sir, you are a political scientist, you try to see the language or the accent. You can never have this kind of accent in any part of Bengal. Ultimately, it was found that it was somewhere from Afghanistan or somewhere else, So, ordinary people, we are also actors in political communication. So I don't want to romanticize ordinary people like some of my friends do, that if we can take power from the politicians and from the media, and I mean, we have it in our own hands. They will be wonderful people. The world will be a great place to live in and all that. But that's not the case. I mean, we are also manipulative. I mean, we have to keep that in mind. That we have a lot of potential to be manipulative, and there are many, many proofs of that. So that makes political communication all the more complicated, you know. Those of us who dream of democratic political communication or democratization of political communication, that becomes all the more problematic, because today fact and fiction are so much blurred that you can't really hardly distinguish between what is fact and what is fiction. So in a way, for an analyst of political communication like me, I find this a great challenge because, you know, the horizons have widened, right? From the bullet model to this kind of situation, you know, we have a very complicated situation, which is in a way good for political analysts because you have much more layers and it's much more complicated. The fifth rebooting, which started, as you can see, from late 1990s. I have identified the, late 1990s onwards. This is a very, very interesting development in political communication, which is, you know, called political marketing. If I mention Prashant Kishore, everybody would know who is he, right? Now, why is he so famous? I mean, he's not a political, I mean, of course, he has floated a party or whatever, but that's insignificant. He is known for being one of the major, you know, I would say sponsors of political marketing in India. But I would, you know, attribute the role of pioneer, the credit of being pioneer in political marketing to Trikaya Grey, that famous advertising agency, which had worked for Rajiv Gandhi to promote this clean image. And they were hugely successful. So Trikaya Grey is the pioneer of political marketing in India, but in America and in other places, of course, they started it, long back. Now, in political marketing, as you can see, you market the politician or the political party, and you get paid for it. So it's a very professional kind of marketing that you have. Two factors, aided political marketing, as I see it. One is mediatization, and the other is spin doctoring. Mediatization, what is mediatization? We all talk of media, but very few of us talk about mediatization, even if we understand that mediatization is taking place. Mediatization is a process by which media logic overwhelms the logic of other institutions of the society. Say media logic is overwhelming the logic of the executive. Media logic is overwhelming the logic of the legislature. Media logic is overwhelming the logic of the judiciary. So media trial, media before the judiciary provides its verdict, media will tell you who is the culprit and who is not. Media will tell you which laws are good and which laws are bad rather than the legislators. Media will tell you how to govern rather than the government itself. So this kind of mediatization, it's a global process, of course, and media, as I said, is now setting the agenda perhaps out of these three elements in the triad, 3 points, in a major way. That is what I call mediatization. Spin doctoring is, the employment of professional communicators. You employ professional communication experts, and what you do is basically you provide slant, you exaggerate, you falsify information in favor of the employing political party. So a political party, America is famous for spin doctoring for a long time, and the best students of social science in political science and sociology, they go and as appointed as spin doctor assistants and with huge money. Now it's a very fascinating thing which is also there in India now. So political parties would employ you as professionals, and the way you, not exactly that way, but the idea is basically the same. The way you sell a soap or a pair of shoes, you will also sell the political party, its ideology, if there is any ideology at all left. That you have to promote, you have to show that this is the most ideological party you have in the world, and so on and so forth, even if it is bereft of ideology. I mean, in a way, we are living in a world where Daniel Bell in 1972 wrote a book, The End of Ideology. In India, at least, I often think that, that title would be more appropriate right now. I mean, who has ideology really and where we are going through is a different, narrative, I know. But the point is, spin doctors are very, very competent, efficient persons, experts. They are indulging in strategic campaign management, what is called strategic campaign management. And what you have as the outcome is often polytainment. There are scholars who say that it is the end of politics. Politics is no longer there. What we have is polytainment. So politics is now an entertainment, rather than the, the ideology of the leaders. We are not even curious at times to know that what is the ideology of the leader, what is the program of the political party. Everything is entertainment. I mean, it's presented in an entertaining manner, and the false kind of, the proxy kind of debates that you have in the evening on television and so forth. I once asked the journalist you know, a very well-known friend of mine, I asked him that why do Pakistani experts come and get, all sorts of, verbal slappings from Arnav and other. I mean, why do the Pakistanis come? They said that, when we invite the Indians, we pay nothing. Because we want to show our face on television, everybody, neighbors should know that, yes, here is the political scientist. I mean, forget about Rajni Kothari, forget about it, because he is the most familiar face. So there is this temptation, even if you are not paid. But Pakistanis are paid $500 per appearance. So because they get $500, they come and get the bashing from whoever, that doesn't matter. After all, at the end of the day, they get $500. This is what is important. This is how media plays the game, with us. And we also try to be very serious and sit back with potato chips and whatever it is, and listen to the debates, which ultimately end up in nothing. So this kind of, hyper-personalization, you see, I mean, if you would, you would know, read any textbook of journalism, they would tell you that anchor has to be, moderator has to be sober and, quote unquote, non-partisan and so forth. And you think of all the successful anchors today. I mean, they are partisan, they are anything but sober. I mean, the more they shout, the more they get the TRP, right? So, this we have to think of. I mean, when we think of political marketing, or this is also political marketing strategy, of the media, because media is in league with the political leadership in political marketing, because political leaders know that at the rate their credibility is falling, it can only be neutralized by media. If media projects you as the greatest leader of the world, then you don't really need to care about the electorate. So you are hugging somebody and, and some American president is looking for your autograph. Fine. I mean, you don't really need any kind of strenuous campaigning, going from here to there and to get votes. But this is, again, I say, as a political scientist, I wouldn't say that this is something evil or something like that. This is part of, political process. Political marketing is part of very sophisticated, strategized political communication. Now, the sixth rebooting is the most provocative one, which is the artificial intelligence, the coming of AI. Now, it is basically related to algorithm-led big data society. And if you see the emerging discourse on artificial intelligence, I'm not talking about the technocrats, I'm talking about those who are non-technocrats now trying to grapple with artificial intelligence, which is not an easy thing to do. The emerging discourse of AI is a mix of apprehension and uncertainty about the possible impact of predictive models and tools. Because AI almost every day is developing predictive models and tools. AI is subverting itself to have another, next day, tomorrow, it will have another more sophisticated tool, more predictive, with more predictive power and so forth. AI has now engulfed diplomacy. AI has engulfed voter engagement. AI has engulfed mobilization, voter mobilization, electoral mobilization, campaign optimization, and electoral outcomes. That is the most important and perhaps the dreadful thing, that AI now has a major role in deciding the electoral outcomes. You know, there is this now this lot of literature is coming up on Hagglebots. Hagglebots are the tools which optimize the global treaties. So when global treaties are being signed, then you are taking help of AI to optimize global treaties. So this is the power of AI, and especially generative AI, which you can find. And AI is very good in micro-targeting. So you cannot be left alone. Even as an individual, you are being targeted. Micro-targeting is part and parcel of AI. ChatGPT, everybody here knows it can play havoc with us. I personally have some experience with it, and I tried to, I'm not an expert, of course, of that, but I subscribed to ChatGPT and asked certain political questions and asked it to write some essays, and it did. But on one point, I find 2 or 3 occasions, ChatGPT, rebuked me, saying that why do you ask these awkward political questions? So there was one question I asked that write a 200-word essay on Trump as a lunatic personality. ChatGPT refused. I said, no, don't ask this type of, this is very, ChatGPT was embarrassed, I would say, and simply refused to write. But if you see the essays, then of course, I don't want to encourage the students, but of course, yes, there is something in it, but still I think that the human factor will prevail anyway. But ChatGPT is there. It would generate messages and text, social media, email. It combine images and videos, and it would be tailored personally. And there would be there are a lot of language models. I don't have time to get into those things, but you have countless. Thank you. Countless, messages coming in, personal messages. Messages are likely to change your vote. And there is, of course, the ethical issue of, privacy and transparency and security. Now, as you can see, the key role of the language model Clogger, because it's there in the slide. Clogger is a sort of black box, it's called, it is part of the black box model, which relentlessly pursues one objective. What is that objective? Maximizing chances that the candidate buying the election, think of it, this is the definition, candidate buying the campaign, election campaign, will win the election. So this is the situation where we are in, with AI determining who wins and who loses, that kind of thing. 2024 US presidential election, I think, is a litmus test for those who are interested in AI and political communication, because Obama had used AI, Trump had used AI. I hope you remember, during Trump's campaign, Hillary Clinton was shown in a very nervous state, right? That was part of AI campaign. That was part of AI thing, that Hillary Clinton was, the image of Hillary Clinton as shivering while, addressing was, splashed everywhere. So Trump has used it, and also it goes to the credit of our Honorable Prime Minister, who has also used AI. I'm not saying it sarcastically. I'm saying that, okay, fine. If Rajiv Gandhi could use political marketing, why shouldn't he? It is very much, everybody is concerned. US Senate is also concerned. On hearing on AI, the OpenAI CEO, Sam Altman, said that, yes, I agree that language models devised by us manipulate, persuade, and engage in one-on-one interaction with voters. So there is a clear document by none other than Sam Altman, the most famous name in AI right now, that yes, we are doing it and our language models are capable of doing this. And India being an attractive political marketplace, so AI would be used here, as, in terms of political communication, most sophisticated form of political communication is nothing to, wonder about, I think. AI campaign management instrument tools, I will just mention the items. because from the items itself, you will have and this is the concluding part of my presentation. Personalized messaging, very, very important. Personalized messaging, because it is based on voters' demographics. It is based on voters' demographics. So you will get a message, sir or madam, you please vote for this, and we are doing wonderful work, and we want to talk to you about this and that. So it's there. Use of chatbots, use of virtual assistants, social media being used. Then there are certain models based on performance measurement and optimization. There is a very important instrument called sentiment analysis. So AI would know your sentiment, your emotion, and then try to change your mind. Or maybe if that AI is employed by or used by a particular political party with whom your emotion also coincides, then it's okay. Then it would be kept. So sentiment analysis becomes very, very important. Fundraising optimization, which is there in America also using AI. They are using AI for this. It's there. Opposition research is very, very important, because AI is now helping out with to understand the nature of opposition, the weaknesses of opposition. That is also there. AI is having speech writing. So many wonderful speeches. I mean, it is no longer Nehru's days. Please remember that the great speeches would come from the lives of Nehru. Those days are gone. Now you might be very impressed with a particular speech of a political leader, but it's basically written by AI. So things are changing. Political communication, as I said, is dangerously fluid, fascinatingly fluid and dynamic. So there is a very interesting concept coming out. Just 1 year back, this concept has been floated. Liar's dividend. Liar's dividend with regard to this kind of AI-led political communication. Because what is being found that if you can lie properly, then you get the most dividend, right? So lying has become very respected now. If you really can lie properly, then you will be hired by best of political forces, political leaders, that please, construct lies for us. And the amount is incredible. I mean, even in India, amount is incredible. Like, I mean, everybody, I mean, in America and Europe, it's different, much more. But here also, it's great. I mean, you can easily leave your university job, because if you stay there for 3 years, you can manage for 2 generations. But you have to be a good liar. That is the thing. I mean, that is why I said it's a disinformation society, more of disinformation society than information society. So I would conclude with I always do that for the last 10 years with maybe 2 cartoons. Conclusion is this, that rebooting taking place, it is displaying dynamism. There is huge implication for democracy. Perhaps I was saying certain things, apparently lightly, but of course it's not lightly, because, it has, I mean, we are at the receiving end. I mean, those of us who have the ambition to become informed, participatory citizens, which is the base of democratic polity, we are being, shattered like anything by the media and by the political leaders, and also with the technocrats, I mean, the AI coming in. So we are at the receiving end of this journey, but at the same time, we must look for, because I still believe that, human factor is most important. So even if you write the best of essays through AI, the one person who can write good essays will surpass AI in quality, in qualitative terms. So the contest must come, the subversion must come from us, from the people ourselves, who are obviously at the receiving end, bearing the brunt of all these technocratic technology advances and all that. The journey is not easy, but worth looking into and deliberating. Thank you. And these are the 2 cartoons I have. You can see the concern they have about AI controlling the votes, the elections. So it is AI on your behalf. Your hand is not your hand. It is your hand has become the AI's hand. It's metaphorically or symbolically, you can say, in terms of imagery. You are saying no, or you could say yes, or whatever it is. And here also, when you, in the next cartoon, when you try to go for, for voting, then AI has, directs you what to do. And this is perhaps the situation that politicians also face along with us, with the rise of media, social networking sites, as if determining the fate for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Is it okay? Yeah. Hello. Yeah. All of us are thankful. Hello. Hello. Huh? It's okay. Hello. Is it okay? Huh? All of us are thankful to Professor Sinha for making very brilliant presentation on the rebooting political communication. You must have noticed that there were a lot of technical phrases, terms in his presentation, but this discipline or this field is of that kind of study contained. But he was giving very interesting and informative examples which have been or which were located in the social political reality. So he made us possible to understand what exactly the political communication means. So now I invite your questions. We shall have a few questions, and later on I will make my my remarks. So let us have some. Your questions must be sharp, focused, and very pointed. Thank you.
So my name is Purbi Kamble. I am a PhD student at University of Mumbai. So my question is that what is your analysis on IT cells that are operating within the parties?
IT cells.
Yeah, we shall take 2 or 3 questions and then he will respond. So that will be more easy to respond.
You mentioned about US being very worried about 2024 elections. What is your take on Indian elections 2024?
Yeah, so my name is Nikhil Samant. Could you please comment on the role of psychoanalysis, which started in the early part of the 20th century with Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung? I mean, there is one parallel here that Lenin once reported to Pavlov that you have saved the revolution.
Yeah. Please take. Okay, okay.
First of all, the IT cells of political parties, they are part of this political marketing strategy, of course, because they are not there to only set things right technologically. I mean, that is just the infrastructure, the logistics. But what they have, the great responsibility is to disseminate information, but to what extent it is information or disinformation or misinformation, I mean, it's very difficult to calculate. I mean, if you see the IT cells pronouncements and the way they publicize certain things, they are totally biased in favor of a party. But as I said, that I don't find it a kind of crime, because you will of course do it. I mean, you are part of the, I mean, that is why I say that, party newspapers are better or safe reading, because in party newspapers you know that that particular newspaper will speak in favor of a particular party. But the more dangerous thing is the kind of neutral media, which poses as we are neutral and we are objective, but you know that there is a slant, clear bias. So IT cells are doing their thing, their business. But the problem is, I think, for citizens like us, the problem is that how do we really, with this kind of flood of information, how do we really distinguish between information and disinformation or misinformation? So that is how the IT cells work for political parties in India. About the Indian election 2024, of course I have some, but I don't want to predict anything, but I will just give you a hint that the election is close, that I could realize just a couple of days back when Chandrayaan became successful. And I am proud as an Indian of the achievements of our scientists and technologists, and with this peanuts of money, this 615 crore or whatever, they have done wonder. But at the same time, I think this has also set the stage for not only for the 2024 elections, but also for the next assembly elections in 5 states. So things are getting ready for 2024 elections, and there is, of course, someone you have to fight who is very successful as a political communicator. That you have to do, and the problem with those who are at the other end is that they are many, and at this point he is the only one. So it is very difficult to fight with a powerful individual when you are many and you have many other affiliations and so on and so forth. I will go up to that. You can understand what I am trying to say. Now about Freud and all that, of course, political communication has been influenced by more by social psychologists, more by social psychologists. And what you say about Lenin and Pavlov is absolutely, that is what we have also studied in our student days. It is basically a psychological game that you have to play. But the point is, Freudian psychology is mostly dark pessimism. It is very dark. But you can't implant Freud here, because in that way you won't be able to make progress. Because here you have to be optimistic that through manipulations, or if you have objection to the word manipulation, you can say maneuverings. Through maneuverings, you will, take your party's interest further, your leader's interest further. So that kind of Freudian pessimism will not work here, I think. It is more of, the study of social psychology and all that. I didn't have all the time to mention them, but I had to, it's a kind of brief presentation. But psychology, of course, plays a very, very important role otherwise. Thank you.
What about the maturity of the voters then? If the psychology plays, and today one politician from BJP also said that it is all by the present government wins by manipulations. But then why people get manipulated? That means our Indian democracy is under question, or then where the maturity of the people have gone?
Okay. I will have to come back again for another presentation, ma'am, to give answer to this. But anyway.
Theatre. Want to say that why people allow themselves to get manipulated?
No.
Following?
Following?
False things.
No. When you say voters, ma'am, voters is not a monolithic block. There are numerous voters of numerous categories. So voters who are privileged, belong to the privileged sections of the society, they get manipulated for different reasons, and voters who come from the lower rungs of the society, they get manipulated for other reasons. I come from a state where, our chief minister, I don't know whether, I mean, she has a party, but the party is she and she is the party. So, in that way, great disciple of Mrs. Gandhi. So, people are happy at the lower rung that they get, what they call Lokhi Bhandar. So you can see, I mean, they get 500 rupees per month, people are happy. The maid who works in my house, I mean, 2 or 3, they all tell us that, sir, you don't understand Dada, you don't understand this. I mean, she has thought of us. For you, 500 maybe, you pay Uber or Ola or within minutes it vanishes, but for us it is important. So I was thinking, that they are also the voters, I am also the voter. But our interests are different. And I may be ready to be manipulated to get certain plum posts or some kind of voucher payment by being the advisor. So my interest lies in that. And her interest or their interest lies in that. So we are all we are all susceptible to manipulations from whichever echelon of society we come. I will tell you a very interesting thing which I also mentioned in the first lecture in Mumbai University. I was invited in an international conference in Gujarat. So I was there from 15th. I left Kolkata on 15th and came back on 20th. So the only condition that they had, and I really have a lot of admiration for that man, that you have to go and see the Statue of Unity. Otherwise it was 7-star and all, everything. Yeah, okay. So I went to see that statue, Vallabhbhai Patel's statue, world's tallest statue. I have admiration for Vallabhbhai Patel, not just because what he did for India, accession and so on and so forth. I also admire him because he was the man, inspiring mind behind Amul, formation of Amul. And Amul for me is a kind of iconic, thing. I really, no Indian starts his morning or her morning without a piece of something from Amul, right? So I've read Korean, I went to Amul Dairy earlier also, 10 years back, to see how they produce. And I'm dumbstruck, by seeing what kind of voluntary organization we can have, right? Of course, Maharashtra is also another very important state where, voluntary organizations are strong. In West Bengal, we have destroyed voluntary organizations. We have been very successful in destroying certain parts of our heritage, and voluntary organization is one, apart from education. Okay, now, so the point is, when I was there, I was thinking that how much of copper and iron has gone into this rupees 3,500 crore statue, right? This could have been they could have established schools and I think Patelji would have been happy also. Rather than having his tallest figure, he would have been perhaps happy. Such a man he was, down to earth and so on and so forth. I was wondering, because we had a 2.5 hour, space before coming back. But what I'm trying to give you, this anecdotal way is this. What were people saying? I saw a lot of people saying that, look, this is the greatest thing that we have done because we have dwarfed Statue of Liberty. So now America is below us. You have to respect this. You can be very satirical about this, very dismissive about this, but this is also an important statement coming from a voter or voters. And then another one said that why America? We have also dwarfed China. Because the second tallest statue, before this statue was installed, the tallest statue in the world was Buddha's statue in Shanghai. And you see in all the lifts, there are these dwarf statues and this tallest statue, right? So, people are impressed. People don't think of copper and how much copper has gone or iron has gone or how many escalators and, the moving floors like airports. Everything is there. And you can go up to the neck of the statue by, having 8 lifts, elevators. So what I am trying to mention in anecdotal way is that, when you say voters, voters have incredible differences, I mean, in terms of social, cultural, whatever it is, economic backgrounds, and they think differently from us in more ways than one. And I always have a very provocative point, for which again then I have to come back another time, is that I don't think Indian civil society is very impressive. I don't find it it is very elitist. The way we speak, our language, our codes, everything is so upper class, so elitist, that we don't get into the ordinary people's minds. They are far removed from us. We have kind of one-shot affair like we had in Singur, in West Bengal, Nandigram, civil society, burst out like anything. But then everything subsides. When a lot of girls are being raped and killed, no civil society activist comes, because that doesn't give you enough mileage, right? So we have to be critical of ourselves also, those who are in the privileged section, trying to present ourselves as a voice of the society. Are we really equipped to do so or qualified to do so? Because my country's ordinary people are different. I mean, they are satisfied with, I have many students in Calcutta University in my department, those who fail for 2 or 3 years. So I asked them that, why do you pursue this? I mean, you will get nothing. I mean, because you have much better classmates, they will get it, and you are nowhere in the in the competition. But they said, if I am enrolled, then I will get 2,000 rupees per month. So how do I explain this? How do I explain this? So our children would go to their conditioned schools, and their children would not have a school building. This India versus Bharat, in our constitution, it will be in India, that is Bharat, but in 76 years we have made it India versus Bharat. Bharat is different from India. We belong to India. So how do we really influence voters' minds? And that is the space where these people make creeping entry, with all sorts of maneuverings or manipulations. Thank you.
Professor Sinhaji Amano, it was excellent hearing you. You demystifying a lot of things on rebooting political communication of today's today's situations. We are indeed pleasured with your excellent thoughts, and you spoke in all aspects of the politics. I have 3 questions.
3, okay, then I have to write here. I'm getting old, my memory is getting weaker. Yeah, please,
go
ahead, yeah.
It may not be question, but I need clarity. The first thing, you mentioned about, because you talked about, Hitler and, the bifurcating of, Germany into East and West. But falling of, Berlin Wall itself is an, communication or message to the globe. So please tell us, what exactly happened. People died, millions of people. World War I, World War II. In fact, my father was a World War II veteran. He came back, alive. So that is one of the gifts of God, I would say. Number 2 is that you've also mentioned about Hillary Clinton's this thing. See, America has not accepted the gender issue. Even today, they will not accept a women president. See, that is how she was beaten away. Please clarify. Third thing is about Indian scenario. If I am given this 5 M's, money, media, muscle, machinery, and the magistrate, I will win against the so much powerful person today. I will win if it is given. Why I should not get? Please clarify. Thank you.
Sir, if I knew that, the last question, answer to the last question, then my photos would be splashed all over India. No, but the fact that you were right that these 5 elements, if you can possess, then you can win against anybody, but you will not be given those arsenals or whatever it is, instruments. No, by being citizen of India, that, I mean, look, sir, if you see Indian democracy, okay, democracy, I mean, whenever we try to claim that, India is world's largest democracy, not because of anything else, but because of our population, right? Because China is not at all a democracy despite having more population, so it is not the largest democracy, we are. One thing we must understand about democracy is that democracy is forever under construction. If you say that, we have constructed democracy, then you are gone. Then you are gone. You always have to say that, we are trying to have democracy. And that is the reason why, I mean, if you may be a citizen, but you will not be given all the, kind of amenities or facilities that can make you a political leader. Because power cannot be, don't think that I'm being very pessimistic, but power cannot be equally distributed. It is not possible. The world is not ready. Nowhere in the world power is equally distributed. But yes, in certain areas, citizens are empowered, like, of course, I would say the Scandinavian countries. Citizens are empowered, definitely. But India, for various reasons, that India cannot become a Scandinavian country, or for various reasons. Too many to perhaps discuss here. And your first point is, I think, the second point was about Hillary Clinton. Now, we shouldn't be so unkind to the Americans to say that Americans are against gender, equality and all that, because lot of feminist movements, the part of feminist movement, lot of feminist literature, women's movements, they have also had. Yes, there are, basically, everywhere you will find these people, these men who are, pathetically patriarchal. In America, you also find them. But we better not reduce it to a kind of point that, Americans are in general, a kind of patriarchal and all that. About Hillary Clinton, what I said is, I was not talking about Hillary Clinton as such, that how Hillary Clinton's image was manipulated by AI to show that she would be very weak, too weak perhaps to be the president. And there is, even the greatest supporter of Trump would agree that Trump is utterly patriarchal. No doubt. You see the body language of the man and the way he speaks. I'm not talking about the acts, then I would be perhaps, the acts that he had. So, Trump is totally transparent about this, that he cannot tolerate women. And that includes Hillary Clinton, of course. And the first one you mentioned about fascist propaganda and all that, Germany. In Germany, I refer to Germany of two different eras. One was the, Hitler and that kind of rise of the Nazi Germany, where Hitler became so very popular. All the scientists, all the social scientists, some social scientists fled to America, of course, but scientists were with him, most of them. And so, such a powerful man, such a charismatic man, who would come to power by landslide victory, that's what I was referring to. And the other Germany I mentioned is East Germany, West Germany, just to show that, how pathetically the alternative political system failed to convince its own citizens to stay back. The earliest opportunity would, if they get, they would defect to West Germany. And they would be killed also, as you know, there were so many border killings and all that. Berlin Wall, you are absolutely right. I think it is one of the greatest symbols of, political symbols, I would say that, or great political communication, that you can't suppress, ordinary people. One day they might strike back. It's true, absolutely true. Yeah, yes, thank you. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Sir, as an economics student, I have a question. I would like to ask you, what do you think, how profitable it is to start a political marketing agency in India?
You would know it better than me, I think. I can advise you on how to make it sustainable. I will provide the content. But I can provide political cost-benefit analysis also. I think many of us, Mridul is there, right there, who is an expert on this. So we can provide that, but you said whether it would be profitable. No, profit you can have, of course. I mean, if you can appoint the right people and those who have the brain to, manipulate things, then you can, of course, do it, because what you can do is you can have a combination of, you hire some people from the advertising agency and you hire some people from social science. I think the combined team would be fantastic that way, because the advertising team will tell you the marketing strategy, that how they market commercial products. And now politics is part and part, politics itself is now a commodity, a commercial product. So we will be able to provide perhaps you with, so as the CEO of the company, I think you will reap much profit to give us a decent salary. Thank you. Yes. Oh, yeah, please.
I think from my point of view, one question is, left.
Please.
That is hacking of EVM machine. Because today somebody from BJP, from Andhra Pradesh, he said whichever machine that EVM machine, whichever button you will press, it will go to us only. What about your opinion on that?
I am...
And thank you for your communication skill with us. We enjoyed that thing.
That is, sir, because
Yeah.
I was first trained in media. So when I joined India Post, Nihal Singh was, former editor of Statesman. He was the editor in chief. And Rahul Singh, Khushwant Singh's son, again a very eminent journalist, he was the executive editor. So the batch went, and we all came out of language, literature, social science background, and we thought that we would usher in a revolution by writing in this newspaper. India would become a new India. First thing they said is that you have to sell this newspaper. Don't think that you are here for social service. If you want to join social service, go to Ramakrishna Mission. Not here. That is the training. Second thing, what Arun Shauriji had also told me, I remember very well, because he also belonged to political science, He said that you have to remember, because at that time it was the domination of print media. Now the situation is different. He told me that, look, you have to understand what you write. Every day in the morning with a cup of tea, people will read the newspaper. Don't try to show that you are a great Pandit. Try to be with the people, try to communicate in a manner, even if it's a very difficult point, try to communicate in a manner so that people with cup of tea would also, read your piece. So these are the lessons I had learned. And today we are all faced with a problem, and I really thank you from the bottom of my heart, the number of questions and the quality of questions that I faced. Because let me tell you very clearly, by now you see that I am a sharp-turned person, straightforward. I can say certain things publicly, which I did also here. In India, in different parts of the world, in different parts of India, we have huge auditorium and beautifully lit. Questions are not asked after seminars, and people remain silent. So we have become silent for certain reasons. We are not, provoked to asking questions, perhaps. And this is, some of you had this concern expressed in your, this is something which is terrible, for us. Because as you said, citizen or civil society, whatever, unless we raise certain doubts, maybe my opponent is correct, but I have to raise, if I have doubt, I will have to raise certain doubts. The questions are not forthcoming. So in Mumbai University, I was pleasantly surprised with the number of questions the students had and the teachers also did it. And here also, I must thank you. Now, about your EVM manipulation, now look, I am a social scientist. Unless I take a reliable sample of EVMs on my own, I won't comment. I am not a politician. I would say that, just before the election, all EVMs are manipulated, so we will take care of that. Or the opposition politician who would say that all, because, you know, we otherwise would have won the election, but it is because all the EVMs are manufactured, manipulated. So I am not going into that. Yes, I think if you are an intelligent political leader, you would manipulate certain percentage of EVM, but not all. Because you always have to show that, look, this is the clear one. And you always, I mean, if you are really a clever politician, you will have some people defeated on behalf of your party, you know. So that you can say that if all EVMs were, you know, manipulated, then how could my partyman, how could he be defeated? So it is not that easy, you know. Politicians saying that, you know, a particular politician of a particular party, that's maybe a kind of, you know, threat, or maybe to just threaten the opposition, and opposition may be, you know, susceptible to all these kind of threats. But for us, I cannot make a comment on the EVM unless I am given, I have my own sample of EVMs and see that what is there in it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, please.
How do you think that the Hindutva card will be played during this election, and how important will that be? And the question she was asking is how the people are, you know, they are very staunch. So even I would say that even the doctors and educated people like engineers and doctors and all, we find that when it comes to Hindutva, topic of Hindutva, they are so staunch.
NRIs?
They are not, NRIs, they are not ready to listen to secularism and things like that. So how do you think that, how to deal with that?
Again, ma'am, if I would know that, then I would be at least invited by... No, I think, you know, there are two sides to it. I mean, the way we had promoted secularism, I think, say, for instance, I come from West Bengal, and we would always have, you know, leftist teachers whom I admire, of course. I may not be a Marxist, but I admire Marx, and I also admire some of my leftist friends and teachers. But the problem that they had is this, that they had a single-minded kind of secularism which was not respectful to the fact that Indians are basically religious. They confused, you know, religiosity and things with, I mean, anybody who would be, I mean, one can be religious and one can also be secular at the same time. This kind of complex thing, because they borrowed it from the West. No? It borrowed it from Machiavelli and others, separation of church and state. Because after all, Marxism is German, West European. You have to understand that. So to implant it on third world countries, I think became problematic. And also, I would say that they were at times very intolerant of alternative opinions. Today you see the Newtonian third force working. It is the opposition which was suppressed till the other day, now it has become the dominant force. And they are resorting to the same thing, perhaps in a cruder manner, that we won't, you know, tolerate any kind of counter opinion and so forth. So I think that is the problem. I will tell you another anecdote that will get through, I will be able to get through my point. My wife's best friend is a Muslim. And the puja that we have at our home is basically, most important puja is Saraswati puja. We do, right? You know, goddess of learning and so forth. Now, there is a particular flower, it's called Palash flower, without which you cannot have Saraswati puja. That is the ritual kind of thing, belief, you know. So, during the Saraswati puja, just 3 years back, I forgot to bring that particular flower. And we started our puja and all that. And that my wife's friend said, no, you can't have that puja because you don't have the Palash flower. How do you explain it? One who prays 5 times a day, asking me that you are at fault, you have not, because she is religious, she is also respectful to other religion also. And a Hindu can also be the same. I mean, you have instances of Hindus maintaining masjids out of their own pocket. We are destroying it, I think, in that sense. Hindutva and Hinduism is not obviously the same thing. But your first part of the question was that what kind of Hindutva, and Hindutva also is changing itself now, because it is no longer maybe, you know, we can do with Article 370 because they've already done it. And so you have to devise new things. And that way, I think, technology has come to the aid of this. Even Chandrayaan can be packaged into the Hindu. I mean, if I am, I will not do it for certain reasons, but if I were given 1 crore of rupees, I could have given you a wonderful packaging of Chandrayaan in terms of Hindutva. From Bhaskaracharya to whatever it is, and Chandrayaan, and who have done it, and so on and so forth. So Hindutva is also reorienting itself. To what extent it will be successful, let's see and wait for the 2024 elections. But it is also reorienting. That I can see. I mean, even in political communication terms, you will see the terms of communication are now changing. I mean, the previous terms are no longer being used. New things are coming up. That has become very, very important. So if you want to counter this, you also have to have as effective political communication as a counterpoint. You just can't go on complaining that, you are doing this and that, because after a point of time, people, what I find is that, when it comes to Lok Sabha elections, people want a strong force, a strong face. In corporation, municipality, panchayats, okay, fine. Even in state elections, okay, someone can manage. But when it comes to the quote-unquote nation, and nationhood is being, now it is nation branding, nation branding is taking place. We in India, Bharat, Mera Bharat Mahan, and all these things. So people want a strong face. You have to counter that in, that way. Otherwise, you will go on grieving and complaining. Things may not be as effective as it is. So, thank you.
Sir, last question. For last 10 years, in India and some states, Mr. Prashant Kishore and his IPAC, they are playing key role in some elections. So now, what will be his role in next election? Now he is in Bihar, but he has established this, what you have mentioned in your presentation. Prashant Kishore has established many things of it. One thing, and this another one, you are from Kolkata. In Bengal, CPM failed to retain its power, but in Kerala, they have succeeded. How do we analyze?
There is a difference. In West Bengal, Left Front was in power for 34 years.
Yeah.
In Kerala, what they did, and which I appreciate, is that every 5 years, they would have an alternate. It is LDF and UDF. But in West Bengal, the tragedy with West Bengal is this, that whenever we have some party in power, they continue for decades. It was started with Congress. There was no opposition. Opposition demolished. Then it started with Left Front. No opposition. Opposition demolished. And now with TMCP, no opposition. I used to joke. I wrote in a newspaper. In fact, that led to a lot of things. Some appreciated, some criticized me like anything. I said that during the Left Front rule, I found in West Bengal, except Jyoti Basu, everybody was CPM. Everybody was CPM, especially academics. Then in Mamata's term, I find except Mamata Banerjee, everybody is TMCP. So why? Because opposition is perennially weak in West Bengal. There would be the governing power, and there would be no opposition at all. Opposition would be there; they would be co-opted. That is the difference between Kerala and West Bengal. That is why Left Front came to power. CPM rules Kerala. And in coming 10 or 15 years, even if I have a lot of CPM friends, I tell they get very disappointed, but they agree that in coming 15 years, CPM has no chance in West Bengal.
In Kerala.
Because it has lost its credibility. When you are there for 34 years and you do certain things which goes against your ideology, people have seen it and were waiting for a particular chance. Now, it's a different thing that we have jumped from frying pan to fireplace. That is our fate, perhaps. And West Bengal is ill-fated because, partition of Bengal took place in only 2 states, West Bengal and Punjab, right? Yeah. It is called partition of India, but it is partition of Bengal and Punjab. So West Bengal is ill-fated. So West Bengal has been bifurcated. Most of it is now Bangladesh. Then we were ruled by this single kind of political party. Opposition always being demolished. So that's the one. The other one you asked about Prashant Kishore, that should be asked, you should ask this question to him, that what he will do. It will be very difficult for me to predict that way. But he is lying low now. And you must remember that Prashant Kishore has failed in couple of states. You remember Punjab. He couldn't succeed.
UP also.
UP also he failed. And he's frank enough. I mean, that goes to his credit. He says that, yes, I have failed. That means that politics is something so complicated that even I cannot, grapple with it. That's I appreciate. But the point is, because now he has this ambition of becoming a political leader or whatever, how much that would affect his career or maybe this skill as a political marketeer, that I don't know. I mean, that he has to decide.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, please.
We'll take this as our last question. After that, I would request the chair to share his views. Thank you.
Hello. Today, religion is used as a powerful tool.
By whom?
By some parties.
But also by religious leaders, sir.
Religious leaders also. What is your opinion and how it is going to last and how to combat all these things?
The day religion has navigated to a kind of, public show from a private realm, I think our fate is like that. So, I mean, we are, accustomed to blaming the politicians for this, utilizing religious things in politics and, politicizing religion and all that. That's why I asked you a counter question, that what about the religious leaders then? What kind of performance do they have? Why do we only blame the political leaders? Why don't we blame ourselves also, who are being part of this? Because you see in India, riots take place more in urban areas and less in rural areas. Why? Why in urban areas? Because we always, urban people, we would think of rural people as, they are prone to this kind of, I mean, if you see the data, then you will see that urban India has faced more riots, much more than rural areas. Because in rural areas, they have lived together. But here, we are being manipulated, and also we like to be manipulated, perhaps. We are, given a chance, I will also get myself manipulated through religious. Say, if I, say for instance, I know this, if say two persons are competing for a job from different religious background, right? So if one gets it because of his or her competence or skill, I can easily convince him or her by saying that, look, you, the other one, that you didn't get it because of your religion. So that could be the majoritarian manipulation, that could be the minority also. Both ways, it counts. That we have always avoided. We have never traded on this path because of our kind of secularism that we were thinking of, and that was being taken advantage of by these forces, I think. Had we been, secular in broader ways, thinking of the Indian cultural ethos and our cohabitation with, we are having, this kind of cohabitation for centuries. So because we have that implanted that kind of secularism, today we are facing what we are facing now. So it is not just the political leaders, it's religious leaders, and ourselves we are also part of the design, I think, which is destroying the fabric of India. I'm in Nehru Center. You can talk many things about Nehru, you can be critical about him, but one thing you have to always admire, this thing, that institution building, right? The vision that he had. But just few days back, I was flying from Kolkata to Gujarat, there was another fellow in the seat. He said that, Nehru was absolutely, I said, have you read Discovery of India? You don't have to read anything of Nehru. Just read Discovery of India. Don't you think that he has a great range? You may not agree. He was adamant. So this is what is happening now. So everything, since 1947, nothing happened. Now, all of a sudden we are having a spark of development and whatever it is. So we also have to blame ourselves. That also I think is important. Denial syndrome, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. But she says this is the last question. I have no problem. I can continue. Yeah, I'm really enjoying that. Yeah, please go ahead. So congratulations.
Municipal elections, if it happens, and
oh, you have not yet voted. You will be
no,
voting.
sir. Yeah, I'll be voting.
Achha.
So you are talking about Gujarat and Kolkata. So Gujarat also have the government from last 25 years. I think so. BJP. And Bengal also has from 15 years, last 15 years.
2011, yeah.
15 years. So. And if I compare about deliverance, about government, so Gujarat has tremendously changed. So it was a backward state in back 2020s, and now it changed. Its image has been drastically changed. And Bengal, who played a key role in India's independence movement, has drastically reduced its value in Indian politics, in Indian politics also, and in India's development also. So, being a new voter, if I have to vote, I'll vote BJP because I see deliverance. So, what are your suggestions that opposition should implement to bring their new agendas and bring their new development plans? Because just spoiling Modi's image cannot be a thing that they can defeat Modi.
Have you seen the Human Development Report of Gujarat? It's abysmally low. It's not good. It's not good at all. Just by, I was impressed when I was going to Gandhinagar from Ahmedabad. I was thinking that I might be in Geneva or Zurich. It's the same thing. I mean, the roads are, so clean, and even Narmada is so clean there compared to Madhya Pradesh, Narmada in Madhya Pradesh. So, okay, fine. But beyond that, you have to think of the people also. Gujarat has many positive things, no doubt about that. I mean, we must admire them for entrepreneurship and other things. For donations they give to the institutions, which Bengal no longer does after partition. But you have to think of human development also. What is the mortality rate? Why is the drinking water situation, safe drinking water situation, so bad in Gujarat? Because I had chaired a session where, these researchers from different, university and other NGOs and other places, they were presenting papers. They were praising Gujarat as a ritual perhaps, but they were also saying that in safe drinking water we are lagging behind, in sewerage we are lagging behind. So that you have to also consider. You have every right to vote for the person you mentioned. That is absolutely your right. But the point is that, you can vote by emotion, by being impressed by him, and he has a lot of things to be impressed about. I have no problem with that. But don't vote on the basis of Gujarat. That is the thing. Another thing is that your freedom of expression is also important. Whether in Gujarat you can criticize the government openly. In Bengal we can still do. I do, but I am still alive. And my students are concerned about me, but I am still alive. But in Gujarat, it's difficult. It will be very, very difficult. But if you think that, okay, that is secondary, I have no problem, because I would just request you to think about these things. But that doesn't mean that I am trying to persuade you to not to vote for him. You can always do it. Yeah. Okay.
A great honor to chair this session in Mumbai Dialogue. I am very grateful to Shri Sharad Pawar, Supriya Sure, Dr. Mridul Nide, Yogesh, and this young lady who were very kind to invite me to chair this session. Friends, after listening this immediate talk, I was just wondering what I should say. But still, I have just thought something about this theme. And So I will just take a few minutes. I know that in Mumbai you have to catch up the local, and it is almost 7 o'clock. So I will just take 5 or 10 minutes, and I will just air my view. It is some kind of a loud thinking, you can say. Although I had jotted some points when he was talking. So I will very little way touch to what he has said, but I will try to contextualize this concept or this term or this issue of political communication. It is true that in India, as he has rightly said at the beginning of his lecture, that we all are in political communication, but we don't analyze the political communication. It is true. This is still a very strange theme and subject field for all of us. And we, when he said that karenge ya marenge ya Atmanirbhar Bharat, or he also talked about Ambedkar's famous slogan. So these slogans or these statements are specifically indicating or telling you the particular message, and it is addressed to the people. It is it has got a definite targets to whom those sentences or statements should be, who should listen to those statements. So there is a definite target for that. There is a definite audience to listen that, and it is addressed to someone, and because of that, these statements are made. But in this sense, political communication is the role of communication in the political process. So it is very much, connected with the political process. It is very much associated with the politics. So if there is no politics, if there is no political process, then we cannot think about the political communication, because I said earlier that political communication is addressed to the particular audience. And when I'm trying to contextualize this concept of political communication in today's time, so let me be very frank, and I was relieved after listening some very strong, value-loaded questions which touch to the contemporary, times. So it is true that we are living in the troubled times. We are living in the troubled social, political, cultural, economic times. And we find that there is a definite shift from party democracy to media democracy. And he has given many examples of how the media, the news media or social media plays a crucial role in shaping the political mind, political attitudes, political opinions in today's time. So we find that there is a shift from party democracy to media democracy. Although it is also true that what we read today in the newspaper is not, in that sense, in the inverted comma, neutral or without bias or without prejudices. When 23 channels are owned by great Ambani, then you know what kind of messages, what kind of news they will be, the news will be delivered or will telecast on the TV or in the news print. When Samir Jain of Times of India says that Mr. Narendra Modi and Amit Shah are Ram and Lakshman, so you can just guess what kind of the political content will be in the newspapers or in the television. When we listen to Republic, I'm specifically taking the names to make you understand what I wanted to say, what I mean by this media democracy. So we are living not in the party democracy as such. It is true that in the 70s and 80s the Congress rule was considered as the one party rule, dominant rule. So that was there. But again today there is that kind of a different form of political system is there. BJP has been dominating since 2014. So it is also single party domination phenomena which exists, which has been existing since 2014. So, but what I'm trying to say is that this is a shift from party democracy to media. We are just we surrender to the TV. We make a point to read the newspaper. Sometimes there is just monotonous character of the news, but still we read, we feel what political leaders of different views are saying. So this is happening today. Today we are living in the media democracy, and again, this media democracy is also based, or it has got an orientation of market democracy. Noam Chomsky has written a very excellent paper. He says that market democracy in a neoliberal order. So newspapers are to be, they are for sale, in all sense. News should be sold. And when we are living in the neoliberal times, it means that, market is important. So market, the economic system. Earlier, this market or the new market or the economic system was not such a dictating system. But nowadays what we see that this market has got very crucial role. It decides what we wear, what we should eat. When we go to the mall, we find that there are so many products. So our choices are restricted. So what I'm trying to say is that today in the same way, the way the market operates in the neoliberal political system or economic system, the democracy, the political system is also operating the same way. So the leaders are sold, they are for sale. So it is not the choice of the people. So the political party decides this leader will contest the election. So that kind of a projection, and his projection is so great that you feel that he doesn't have any opposition. There is no opposition to a particular party, any political party. So this is the market democracy today. It is not only the media democracy, but it is also the market democracy which exists in the neoliberal times. And we are also living in the in the times of digital media. So there is a mushroom growth of internet, Twitter, all sorts of technological innovations which have taken place in the information technology. So and we always say that now it is a global village. So that phenomena, that term occurred when the globalization started making noise. So now we are living in the era where there is an existence of global village. So the digital media has become so powerful, and it cuts across to all sections of the society. It is not just that the youngsters are very much interested in this digital technology, but most of the business, and particularly in the Corona times, that this digital media, digital instruments become so influential from our children to the adults. So because we are just, we had just become the hostage at our homes, and so work from home, all these phenomena, and also what happened in the post-Corona period. So now when we have to make any reference of understanding today's times, we'll have to refer the post-Corona period. We have to, that has become the reference point. Corona has become the reference point because everything has changed. And because of that, what I'm trying to say that today we are also living in the digital India. And what has happened in this digital India, or what has happened in the market democracy, or what has happened in the media democracy, there is an absence of informed citizenry. Because there is an explosion of information. The problem is today that there is a lot of information available. There was a period when there was just one black and white TV, or there was one or two channels, only one channel, Doordarshan was there. But now there are so many channels which we see on the television. So this information explosion, what it has made? So it has confused us. At the same time, it has also allowed us not to make any concrete opinion. So we cannot make any sharp opinion about a particular thing. And if we are making a sharp opinion about a particular thing, then it is already influenced by something, indirectly or directly. So this happens. Whatever we see, on the TV screen, or whatever we read, so we are conditioned. So this conditioning is happening. And this has happened so strongly, so rapidly, we just forgot that what we are reading, what we are watching. So we cannot make our own independent choices, social, political choices. So whatever is the projected, we feel that this is the truth, this is the reality, there is no truth beyond this, because we are seeing this. This is the sense, perception, the sensual perception, because we are exactly watching what is happening. And because of that, what has happened, that there is an absence of informed citizenry. So we cannot, as you said, that we are silent. There are many reasons for why we are silent. And you know that why we are silent. But at the same time, this kind of silence is required by the establishment. The establishment expect that you should not ask the question. It is not that we don't have any questions. Why tomato has become so expensive? Why onions will become more expensive? This discussion will take place in the newspaper. But what are the root causes of these crises? About that, it is very difficult to raise the question on the street. It is very difficult to raise these questions in the public domain. And we cannot write about these issues. So there is a wave of silence that is prevailing in the today's time. And because of that, there is no an informed citizens. Although they would like to talk, they would like to make their own expressions, but they are scared to make their genuine, their honest opinion. And again, he has also talked about misinformation or disinformation. So, rise of mis and disinformation, because when you must have you must have witnessed how the trolls act. So, why the trolls act? Why there is a bombarding of so many views or opinions by a particular group? Why it happened? If I'm saying I'm appreciating Nehru or I'm appreciating Gandhi, or I'm just a little bit critical of the the Hindutva politics, something, then there is a just gathering of trolls. Swati Chatterjee has, I think, I forget her, Chaturvedi has written an excellent book on this, how the trolling happens. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a lot of misinformation or disinformation which happens, and it makes us not to make any very articulate opinion. And because of that, what is happening today, the norms of factuality, fairness, and rationality are violated. The norms of factuality, the facts are, they have disappeared. So it's very difficult to find out the facts. And it is very difficult to see the fairness. So the factuality, fairness, and rationality are violated in these times. And at the same time, one must not forget that there are links between online disinformation, private social media, and political violence. So when we read the newspaper, when the lynching takes place, so that lynching takes place because someone has told you by the social media or by through the internet, you come to know that may be true or may not be true, but the violence takes place. So the powerful social media, which gives you disinformation or misinformation, so you have to find the link between these three. And what is more crucial, and that is, I think, one should be very careful, that the weaponization of social media during the election times. So this is happening because, as he has rightly said, that Trump or Hillary Clinton or in 2014, and you know that in 2014 how the elections were conducted, and at the best internet revolution which took place in the Arab Spring. So that was the first time how technology empowers you, how technology empowers people to assert against the government. And the technological transformation which has taken place, scientific and technological transformation which has taken place in Europe or America, there you find that this kind of use of technology is always used against the establishment or against the opinion makers. So what is my point, that there is a weaponization of social media during the election. So so we have to say that there is a need to understand the relationship between communication, media, and democracy, and that is very important. And I would like to just touch to one or two issues, and then I will conclude. Now this we talk about in today's democracy the informed consent. So whether that informed consent is really true, and he referred to Noam Chomsky, the consent is manufactured. In the market economy, the consent from the people, the legitimacy is sought from the people. So if there are problems, social problems, political crisis, so it is very difficult in the representative democratic system that how to receive the consent from the people. Because if you don't get the consent from the people, then your political system or your social system, and particularly the state, it doesn't become legitimate, or it is if it is not approved by the people. So legitimacy crisis is always there, and for that informed consent is important. And in the absence of informed consent, why I am saying informed consent, because most of the time in the capitalist economy, like USA, and Noam Chomsky has written one book, the consent is manufactured. The consent is produced. So there is some role for opposition. There is some role for the dissent. There is some role for raising different voices. And in liberal democratic political system, in the representative political system, this should happen. If it is not happening, then that cannot be the vibrant democracy. And secondly, what I would like to say is today we find there is a thin line between political communication and propaganda. In fact, there used to be more talk of propaganda during the Nazi period, but later on it was stopped because it got very indecent shades, and then political communication term became more powerful in Europe and United States. To conclude this, my remarks, what I would like to say is that today we will have to understand, or we will have to examine the implications and consequences of communication when there is abundance information, when the information is abundance. So if we are not in position to analyze, classify the information, then it will be very difficult to make our articulate opinion. And what is more important today, that we must raise questions, dissents, and issues which may not be acceptable to any establishment, because the questions they were never liked by any establishment, because the government wants to maintain the status quo. But it is necessary in the vibrant liberal democratic setup that we should ask the question, and there the role of political communication, is important, because the political communicators, they try to maintain the order in the political system. And these political communicators should not be from any established political party. We have got civil society organizations, we have got voluntary organizations, we have got many local newspapers, and they raise voices of the people. So this kind of opportunity, asking the question in the public domain, it is important in the representative democracy, and I think we have to be very alert to see that this kind of articulation, critical, creative articulation in terms of political communication is possible, and that is our responsibility. It is the responsibility of the citizen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zondare, for your concluding remarks. What a wonderful session it was today. Success to any political communication lies in the buzz that it creates after the speech. And I guess Mr. Dipankar Sinha, Professor Dipankar Sinha, has been successful here today, because the most interesting part was the question and answer session. I hope you would agree with that. So as he rightly mentioned, that political communication is dangerously fluid now. And under the scenario that we are seeing outside this hall, it's kind of a canvas where lots of lashes, splashes, and blots are happening over here. So under this situation, when he mentioned about listening to the debates that ultimately end up in nothing, and also about the lying dividend that you mentioned, sir. For the point on this, I would prefer to select 1 minute of pure silence as my political mode of communication. I'm sure when we were laughing, in some of the comments that we were laughing on our faces, but in our hearts, we were suffering. And this is a very stark situation. Sir, I would like to, one more thing that you mentioned, that the 7 reboots, I think the AI is the 7th reboot, I guess, the current reboot. So the youth of today, those who are the new voters, it's up to them what reboot 8.0 will be. Right? Yes. And again, thank you for your appreciation towards YCC and Nehru Center, sir, for our genuine efforts towards this. And yes, YCC would like to be that platform where you can have an open, liberal, and democratic discussion and communication and debate about all that is happening and all that is concerned to a common man, since the great R.K. Lakshmanji was also mentioned here. So today I also learned that not only the road to success, but also the road to democracy is always under construction. Thank you for that. So on behalf of Yashwantrao Chavan Center and Nehru Center, I, Dipti Nakle, would like to thank everyone for attending this session today. And please keep attending and supporting us here on. Our next session will be shared on our website, www.chavancenter.org. We will end today's session with National Anthem. Thank you.
जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्ज्वल जलधि तरंग तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय